Officially, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today. We are going to have a very intimate, very simple session. We're going to have a discussion with Nathan, like a fireside chat, followed by another panel or customer discussion with Dassault Systems, and then followed by some food and drinks and networking. So I would like to invite Nathan to the stage.
Thanks, Anwar. Good afternoon, everybody.
So, Nathan, thank you so much for being today and for making this whole event happen. And can you introduce us who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm the General Manager for Wix for Southeast Asia and Australia and New Zealand. I've been at Wix for almost 2 years at the moment, and we're sort of just really building out the region from a boots on the ground perspective. And prior to that, I've spent my career starting in retail, so managing stores across Australia and New Zealand, physical stores. Moved into supply side, so I've worked for Sony, brands like PepsiCo, Roadshow Entertainment in sort of DVD industry, which is as a dying one, as you probably are aware. And then I moved into e-commerce platform technology, so eBay, payments, international payment company, providing support to marketplaces globally, and now at Wix. So that's kind of my career to date. Feels like it was a job interview, but yeah.
Thank you, Nathan. Just want everybody to know what you do. And I also will do a quick introduction about us. So Synapsys is a French company based out in Malaysia. So we started here in 2018 with one client, Dassault Systems, and then we expanded to a few other clients. We are working with property developers, TNB, and a few other service providers, service industries. Now, we have been working on digital marketing in a lot of the time, but we get constant requests from people asking for website development, and then we've been working on WordPress and other Shopify. However, recently we had one of the clients we worked on was on Wix, and we saw how easy it was, and then so I started to talk to someone from Wix Enterprise, and then that's how the whole thing started. And I find that there is a need for a really good technology when it comes to websites, and hence we started talking, and we are here today. So I have a few questions to ask. However, I won't take it long because we started late. So just wanted to ask, first of all, when I heard about Wix, what I found was it was a DIY website, and everybody said it's a booking site and that kind of a vibe. So how does a DIY or a simple booking website become a multi-billion-dollar company?
Thank you, Anwar. So who here has built a website on Wix or knows somebody who has? Okay, we've got a few people. Yep, good. Couple of delicate hands coming up, which is nice. And it was hopefully very easy, and if you built it recently, there's a little bit more complexity to it. But if you built it 5 or 6 years ago, it was all about simplicity. So Wix started in 2006. And the founders of Wix, what had happened was they were actually trying to build another startup, and they needed a website. And they went off and tried to build a website, and they looked at WordPress, and they realized they had to code it, and who's built a website on WordPress or asked somebody to build a website on WordPress, and it's a bit more convoluted. So they went through, started looking at that process. They thought, what if we could scrap our original idea and start building a platform that could enable people to simply build websites? And that's kind of where Wix started. So the perception of Wix globally has sort of followed that mantra. Wix has now got 230 million users worldwide. About 10.5% of the websites around the world are built on Wix. So now, as the new evolution in the sort of the last 12 to 24 months or so has really been talking to enterprises, and how do we sort of shift our capabilities to enable that? And there was a couple of things that we looked at. One is, do we build a new enterprise solution, or do we enhance our existing infrastructure to be able to make it suitable for enterprises? And that's kind of what we've been focusing on recently, really enhancing our infrastructure to be able to do that. And then the second part is perception. How do we shift the perception then of Wix from DIY, because everyone knows Wix is DIY, to that enterprise level, which is still something that we're working on, and there's a few things happening in the sort of the short term and the mid-term future that'll address that. But effectively the Wix platform, where we have 36 million visits a month, is built on Wix. So we can handle it from a traffic perspective. And also the Wix subscriptions, which is managing that 230 million users worldwide, is also built on Wix. So again, from a performance perspective, when we're talking to enterprises, we've got that capability, but it's just around that mindset and perception in the market that's needs a shift.
Thank you. So what is your role in this region, and what are you trying to achieve in Malaysia and Singapore?
So my role is GM for the region, and it's really around, I guess, for anyone who's in these sorts of roles, it's growth. You know, how are we finding growth in different markets, and how are we finding and supporting businesses in other markets as well. And that's kind of what we're after. We've got a platform that can really help businesses essentially managing content, build their online presence, and go to market very effectively. And that's what we're trying to address and make it easy. For me, it's what are the key markets in the region that we can start to work with? And we started in Australia. Okay, that's kind of where our footprint has been based, hence that's where I am. But then what are the next two really key markets that we can start to work with? And Malaysia and Singapore for us made a lot of sense. We had a great partner in Synapsys who approached us. For me, Singapore obviously makes sense because there's a lot of, commerce that runs through the country. But Malaysia also makes a lot of sense too, because one of the things about Wix that's interesting is a lot of it's English-based platform, right? It's all very much English-based. And one of the things that stood out to me, and this is my first time to Malaysia, is just the level of English across the entire country. It's a second language for most people in the country. And we had an SME event earlier today, and we were talking about growing globally. And one of the things I highlighted as a strength for the country for me is the level of English, because if your competitors in the region, it's Vietnam, for example, Thailand, their English level isn't as good in those markets. So the ability to communicate, to work from a business perspective globally from Malaysia, I think is a really strong advantage that is something that can be taken advantage of. And from my side, if we can provide a platform that can assist the businesses in the region to be able to do that, then that's something for me that, personally, on a personal note, will bring me a lot of pleasure, but also from a business perspective, I think we can deliver a lot of success.
Thank you. So that brings me to this. You have about 200 over million users on Wix. And what kind of challenges do you face in terms of your competitors, and who would those be?
We have quite a lot of competitors. It probably, again, depends on the area that we're focusing on. So from a DIY perspective, the main competitors there is obviously WordPress, Squarespace. There's some of the big ones. From a WordPress perspective, there is a vast difference. They're open source, we're closed source. So our platform is a lot more secure for end users who don't have to think about how do I create patches and so on and so forth to close any penetration attempts that may come through. From that security perspective, it's also much easier to maintain. They don't have to worry about hosting and so on and so forth. For partners, it's also quite easy because, again, they don't have to worry about the hosting. Hosting is a race to the bottom from a pricing perspective, so if they can remove that as something they have to think about, then it makes it a lot easier. On the enterprise side, it's more around content management, and our solution that we've created, which I haven't really gone through in detail, but it's really around how do you manage content at scale, and how do we've created a tool to enable a business to take their online content, and typically if you think about it, I'll give an example. So if we've got a brand, say Daikin, does anyone know the air conditioning brand Daikin? So we've just started working with them in Australia, okay, for across Australia and New Zealand. And they have their website, and they're just starting to build it, so it's not live on Wix yet, but they've signed a couple of weeks ago, so I can talk about it. So they have a whole bunch of different products on their platform. Products that they're selling, and they have marketing teams. So traditionally, let's say they want to be able to build a landing page for a promotion, for example, or they need to adjust content on a page because they've got a new product launch. So typically, they would have to go to a dev team who then has to build that, and they might have to build a brief, and that's going to take maybe a month or 2 months or 3 months, depending on what their roadmap looks like. The dev team can also go, actually, we've got to pause this marketing roadmap because we've got, a key infrastructure build that we need to do, so there's another delay and so on and so forth. But they're like, but we need this promotion, we've got the product launch. We've all been in that boat. So knowing that's a problem, our platform, what it does is it enables the marketing team to be able to manage the content without having to go to the product team. So a partner will set up what templates, for example, so they might have product page templates, they might have a website template. Then the marketing team can go in and actually recreate a landing page, and we have very specific permissions that it can be enabled, so that way the marketing team can adjust the content on the page without breaking the framework of the site. Okay, so if there's a page and there's a site, so Daikin, they've got a new air conditioning unit that's come out, and they want to run a promotion, win a trip to Japan if you buy because they're a Japanese company, win a trip to our head office if you buy an air conditioning unit, marketing team can create it. They've got all the brand, and there's the brand consistency and the messaging still coming through, and it's sticking to their format, and they're able to edit it and tweak it. The other thing is, let's say they've got their site and they might have 20 or 30 sites or 100 sites that they have to manage because they might have them regionally, or they might have different stores that they want to manage. They can also manage them all in the one location. And if they have to edit all of those sites, they can do it in one go. So if they have to change their logo, let's say they decided to change the color of their logo and they need to do that across all of their sites, they can do that with sort of the click of a button rather than having to go to 100 sites and make the change. So that's kind of, what we're focusing on a little bit.
Thank you. So the key takeaway from this would be that...
Sorry, I didn't mention our competitor. The competitor, that's what I was going for. I had to explain that. That was the question. The competitor then for that is more like your Sitecore's, is probably the main one in that space. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Sitecore or not. And they're probably the difference between us and them is going to be down to cost. So they have buy one, buy all. So you have to buy their whole suite of products, and it can cost, I'm not sure the cost locally, but say, for example, in Australia, we've got a client that we're working with who's about to sign. They've been spending in Aussie dollars around $1.5 million a year on websites, right? It's a lot of sites and it's very complex. And that's with Sitecore. We can do the same thing. And again, we are market pricing, so it's different, but we'll do the same thing for less than a quarter of the price. So exactly the same as to what they need. But with Sitecore, they're getting a whole bunch of other parts of the product that they don't actually need and they don't need to touch. And so that's the story. But our enterprise solution isn't starting at that price. It's much cheaper, just to not scare people.
So the key takeaway is that your solution, as an agency, we could manage multiple brands at one access point without the need of having to log into different websites and different backends.
Correct.
Oh, wow.
And you can give the permissions to different people in your team to be able to do different elements. So some people could be design, some people could be development, some people could just approve. Like you could have someone going, okay, well, I just want Anwar's our MD, I just want him to approve all the changes so everything's done, and then he can click it and then it will go live.
Thank you. That is impressive. So
I built it myself. No.
So the question here is, how do you service an enterprise business based on this?
Okay, so in terms of service, I guess there's a couple of things. The first is, our discussions are really around working with clients as a partner. We want to understand the journey that they're on rather than just, here's the solution, take it and run with it. We want to understand what is the strategic direction of a business. And I've always come from that type of a relationship with our clients. So I mentioned before, I worked for PepsiCo, so I worked very closely with grocery. And so it's a long-term process. How do we I was selling on the Lay's equivalent in Australia, how do we get chips in? But it's not just moving product, it's a relationship, because how do we sort of, set up displays and make sure that they've got what they need throughout the course of time. But anyway, it's all around relationships and understanding the strategy of the business that we're working with. How can we contribute to that? From a technical standpoint. So is there any sort of advice that we can provide? And also, given that we're a global company, we're often working with companies who might be local as well, who are looking to expand globally or are looking for insights in certain areas. So whatever we can provide from an insight perspective, that's also something we like to work with. So it's more a consultative approach. And even if we're working with the likes of, Daikin, it's the same sort of thing. Like there are certain things they're very, very good at, they're very good at selling physical products, but their digital journey is not so great. Like, so if you go to their website in Australia, they sell parts and accessories, but it's a really terrible experience. You have to you can click and then you have to enter in a password to be able to buy something, and it's just a really, really terrible e-commerce experience. And yes, they've got an e-commerce person in the business who knows how to do it better, but they're looking to us to go, okay, how can we improve this? And that's where we can work with them on what's their user journey, how can we provide some analytics to tap into that to be able to improve that digital journey for them to make their customer more happy and their customer experience better. So we're never going to be able to give them advice on in-store activity, for example, or how to sell to a retailer. That's not something that we can do, but we can leverage our experience building that 230 million user base to be able to help drive their funnel, their digital funnel. Because essentially it's about a funnel, isn't it? It's always, you have a sales funnel. In any business, B2B, B2C, it's a sales funnel, and how are you optimizing that funnel? And that's what we became very, very good at on a B2C perspective, is optimizing our funnel to be able to convert those 36 million views a month down to a good conversion rate for our paid users, paid subscription users, to be able to be at 230 million. So how can we take that insight and pass that on to our customers to help them scale in their business? And that's something we really enjoy doing. So in terms of your question, how can we work as closely as possible with our clients to help them on that journey, and whatever advice and support we can provide them, and then overlay that with our technical solution, then it's a win-win.
Thank you. That brings me to, in 2023, we have been facing, everything is about AI. ChatGPT, Adobe came out with it, and a lot more. So how do you stand with AI and Wix?
Yep, so AI's been a part of Wix actually since 2016. So we've had our first AI tool back then, which was for our DIY customers. If you go to the Wix website and you want to build a website, there's a couple of questions that are being asked around who you are, and we automatically, intuitively, or the AI puts forward a couple of templates that are best suited for them based on their business to be able to build a website. So it's something that we've always had sort of happening in the back, and now it's just become more apparent. So we've actually currently got 10 different products in our suite which are AI driven. Everything from patch into sort of ChatGPT for content and text writing. We have image altering and image creation. There's trailer. There's one for trailers, so you can sort of take some videos and it can turn it into a trailer with AI automatically. And then we've got another 4 products that are coming out very soon. One is a total website creation tool that we've just announced. So you'll be able to punch in a bunch of fields and then you'll get your entire website as opposed to just the template. And then there's a couple of other interesting ones. So object removal from images, which will be AI driven. So you'll be able to punch in some images and they'll be able to remove whichever objects automatically based on what it suggests.
So all this can be done on Wix, and you don't have to have a third-party application?
Correct, yes. No third party for those ones.
That's impressive. So why is content so important to drive growth in today's market? We talked about it this morning, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, content. Who here is involved in the content creation for their business? Have we got a lot of people involved? Yeah, good. There's a couple, yes. My head of marketing's here, so she's definitely involved in that. Content's, for me, it's really critical for any business. At Wix, it's been one of the levers that we've been utilising quite heavily to be able to drive our scale. And it sort of reminds me of the content that we create. We talked about it today. The content that's created has to be really specific to the customer. Okay, so who is the customer? We talked about that funnel just a minute ago. So content creation typically helps you fill your funnel rather than necessarily pushing people down, through the sales process, unless it's potentially B2C. In a B2B environment, you're less so. B2C environment, you can still use content to funnel people through the funnel without doubling up on words there. But it's really about, for us, it's always been product first, so product-led content, right? And one of the examples for that is we did a Super Bowl ad in the NFL Super Bowl. Everyone's familiar with that. So we did our first, we'd only done 2, and then we sort of realised it was it was a good thing at the time, and then didn't need to do it subsequent to that. There was apparently a very good deal on the table, which is why it was taken, but it was all very last minute. But I think the budget for Wix at the time, this is big numbers, I think they had like 90 million in marketing budget and they spent about 10 million on the ad. So it's quite, it was a huge decision to take that much budget and throw it into an ad, and that was not even including the creation, that was just the spot. So at the time it was like, whoa, is that something that should be done or not? And they took a risk and it paid off. But that content that was designed was very focused around the product and showing customers the interaction of the product and product right at the forefront. Okay, and that was something that's always happened in our content. Like, who here's seen Wix videos in their social media feeds? No? A few people? It's always product. Okay, it's not, someone famous just dancing around on the screen and then, there's a product at the end. It's not like a Pepsi ad. It's more around people interacting with the product. And one of our competitors also did a Super Bowl ad the following year, and their product only appeared in the ad after 26 seconds. So ours was all product and theirs was 26 seconds afterwards. And there was, from our understanding from some of the agencies, there was a big difference in terms of engagement as a result, and results like, in terms of ROI from that. So for us, it's always about positioning content specifically for the end user in mind, and how do we deliver that. So the content is always about building that story, it's building that engagement. So for me, it's a really, really important, tool in terms of the starting and potentially the conversion within the funnel as well.
Thank you. So you talked about product in terms of Wix. So with enterprise and with the normal product, who are the targeted audience for, let's say, a DIY or a standard product versus a enterprise?
Yeah, so DIY is anybody on Wix. So we have anyone. We have e-commerce tools, we have bookings tools, if it's services and so on and so forth, blogs. So it could be anyone blogs. So it could be, I've got friends who had a wedding and they built a website on Wix because they wanted to give people information about, the wedding. That was a free site. So it's kind of very democratized in terms of the target audience. From an enterprise perspective, it's typically a business or a brand who might have multiple assets that they need to manage. So it could be a franchise, for example, that might have many stores and they want to give access to the stores to be able to have a website each that they can control. It might be a brand that has multiple brands or multiple products that they want to manage all in the one go. Or they have lots of locations that they need to manage many sites. So that's typically the types of businesses that we are working with, that we find will get the most use out of the enterprise solution.
Well, thank you for that. So we had inquiries from slightly bigger companies. They are trying to enhance their websites and they want to unify their products. How much of how complicated it is to, so let's say, migrate an existing functioning website into, let's say, Wix or Wix Enterprise?
Yeah, I guess the problem with that is it always depends, and it depends on the back end and how many integrations, because that's often the one thing, like what integrations sit at the back end. And that's one of the questions that we often get asked is, can we integrate this solution into what we've got standing? And the answer to that is yes. There is, it isn't a template solution, it's all integratable. And that's what we're also focusing on. How do we build all of the elements of our business so that it can be used either standalone, so you can just take the booking side, you could just take the e-commerce side, or you can just take the events management side and just use that, or you can just take the content side. And then integrate whatever you want into it. Because again, it's about flexibility, and we talked about the relationship and that consultative approach and helping the client. That's what it's about. How do we help the client, providing them with the tool that they need based on their requirements, and integration is really, really critical for that.
So it is really easy to manage the front end, and then as long as you have the API, you can integrate.
Yeah, everything's easy-ish. Again, it just depends on how complex someone's website is that they've got currently. When you're migrating, is it migrating? Are you on Shopify and you've got 50,000 products and you're migrating that across onto Wix, for example? That's going to be much more complex than if you've just got, a website that doesn't have products but it's got 10 different websites that's just content management. So that would be a lot easier. So again, everything's doable. It's just, it depends, unfortunately.
So my understanding about an enterprise solution is that, for instance, if we take university as an example, you can have a one website for the university, and then you can have multiple websites under each faculty,
Yeah.
and
Correct.
that can all be managed in one
Yes, correct.
one level.
Yep. To be honest, it was around, a lot of it was actually Google marketing, was paid marketing, and our CMO at the time, who's still the CMO currently, and he resides in Sydney, funnily enough, but he took a few risks. And at that time, back in, when they started the scaling process, the science behind Google ads and Google spend and even Facebook spend wasn't as advanced and finessed as it is today. So he found a couple of partners who were referring traffic onto Wix, like blog sites they were getting traffic from Google. People were searching, then they were funneling it through, and so he started identifying that there was a lot of traffic coming through from these blog sites, so to speak. So then he started reaching out to them, buying spaces on their site, and paying them like an affiliate fee, essentially, to be able to drive traffic. Again, that it seems quite simple now because everyone does it, but it didn't exist really back then. Right, we're talking in 06, 07, I think it was 07 or 08. So it wasn't as mature as it is now. So he would just pay them like an affiliate fee for them referring traffic, and then they would get bumped up in search, and then it just started happening. And then they started acquiring some of those sites because they were getting really good traffic from it. So they went, okay, we'll buy the site from you. Then they started making them look better and driving more traffic. So then they had a bunch of affiliate sites that we owned, and then it sort of took up from there. So that was kind of the snowball effect that really delivered a lot of traffic to the site. So that was the traffic. And we talked this, again, we talked this morning, but one of the constructs that sort of, from my experience in different industries, is sort of delivered around the customer journey, so to speak, is kind of, I use it as forces of retail, but it could be online, but there was awareness, traffic, how do you get more people to come to your site, conversion, how do you get people to buy something, basket size, how do you get them to buy something else, frequency, how do you get them to come back, and then advocacy, how do you to refer you, right? So if we look at that journey, and the awareness is really that element of it. How do people know that Wix exists, and how do they get into buy? Because at the time there was a lot more competitors. It wasn't just the WordPress, the GoDaddies, the Squarespaces, and so on and so forth. And GoDaddy's actually built on WordPress anyway. But there was a whole lot more. But there was that awareness part. Then we were getting the traffic to the site, and then a lot of work was done on that funnel around conversion. So we're getting the traffic, but then people were dropping off. So then the business was is very data focused. So it's, okay, we've got these people dropping out of the funnel. Why are they dropping out of the funnel? And then we started analyzing why they were dropping out of the funnel, and we started looking at measurements around, okay, if they're hitting on the funnel, like hitting on the landing page now, how long does it actually take for them to convert? And we had a metric that's been in place for a long time, which was not looking necessarily. So if we do an activity, marketing activity, day X, there was an attribution of around 3 months that there were still conversions based on that activity X that were occurring. And then often you might not necessarily wait for 3 months. You might just look at the first 2 weeks. So we kind of looked at, well, what is the optimum range for our business model to be able to attribute to activity X all those sales? And then they started becoming a cycle. So then we had like a sort of a 3-month cycle that we would then attribute to all activities that we were doing. And then we could measure, well, where are the sales coming from? What are the activities for how long? Because sometimes people aren't changing their mind in our world instantaneously. Like if I'm built on WordPress, it takes time to then, decide, okay, I'm going to re-platform to Wix. Even though you can build a Wix website quickly, it can take some time. Okay, and it'll also take them time for activation of starting to build it, and then conversion to paying, because they'll build the free site, do all the design, and they don't want to start paying for a subscription then. And then once they've done that, then they're going to start paying for it, right? So that again could be 3 to 6 months later, depending on the size of the business. Because I could be a small business, I have zero time, and I'm doing it myself. I'm not getting an agency to do it because I don't want to pay for them. So it could take me 6 months because I'm only doing it an hour a week because I'm very busy, time poor. Okay, so how do we attribute that back to that X activity? So all of that became that funnel, and then how are we optimizing that to really make sure that we're driving the conversions and increasing conversions on an ongoing basis. So it just became very scientific around funnel, and that's sort of been the mantra of the business. And it's all, again, the other thing, the key thing about Wix is we're product first. So our entire organization is built around the product, okay? And everything we do is product-led, and all of our product teams, if they're going to launch a new product, speak to users. They'll speak to them, speak to partners before they launch it. It's not always coming out, an optimized product at the, complete product, and there needs to be iterations to improve it. But the aim is to really make sure that when we're launching something, it's something that our customers need. And then the other part to that product part is velocity. So making sure we've got the team to be able to increase the velocity of product development. So again, it goes back to that funnel. So we know where people are in the funnel, why they're converting, why they're not converting. Is that a product issue? And then can we increase velocity to provide them the product that they need that's going to actively convert them?
Hi, hello, Francesca from GoGet. Is that cycle the same if you were selling to a very large corporation? So let's say you're selling to, his example, a university that has, like the largest university in University of Sydney. I would assume that you don't really rely on that data.
No, so B2B and B2C, they both have funnels, right? But they are different funnels, and often businesses sometimes can get them confused, and sometimes businesses get them done really well. So I've worked in a business before where we had someone who was, it was a B2B company, but we had someone from B2C marketing come in, and not to say people from B2C marketing can't get B2B marketing and vice versa, but it is a different mindset. So if we think about the B2C funnel, it's around how do we convert directly from traffic or awareness down to sale. So if you think about, I'm buying a t-shirt, right? If I like running, so I want to buy a running shirt. I know I need a running shirt, okay? And the next step is, what shirt am I going to buy? There's a whole bunch of brands. Am I going to buy a Nike brand? Am I going to buy a Saucony brand, an Asics brand, or am I going to buy a generic brand? Go to Amazon and just buy whatever, right? So there's an awareness, there's intent, right? And then how am I converting that to a sale? So each of those brands are then going to try and convince me that their brand is the right one, and based on either my brand loyalty or what I need from that product, do I want something that makes me look great, or do I want something that's more performance related? I'm going to buy a different brand, right? So that funnel will then convince me to ultimately purchase. On the B2B side, generally it's a complex sale, right? So your funnel is, especially on the digital marketing side, isn't around converting from awareness into sale, because people aren't going to purchase that product online, right? They're just not going to make that purchase. So it's more than converting to a meeting, so awareness to the next stage in your sales process. So then what is your defined sales process? And then how are you converting to the first point of that sales process that you're actually engaging with a salesperson? So whether it's an SDR, to qualify them out, so how are you actually getting the lead to that, into the business, into the pipeline? And then you've got your other processes to be able to qualify in, qualify out, sales cycle, so on and so forth. So that's kind of where it differs a little bit. But again, you can still create content, you can still create the journey, you still can do everything you want, but you're just having a different endpoint.
With translation, is there any challenges with that? So if you're the main company is in English, but you've got a few different sites in different in different parts of China, is it as easy and simple to then just click the button and...
Yeah, it is multilingual, yes. So there are limitations, like we don't have every language in the world, but the main language is it's multilingual, so it will translate, yes. And quite well. It's not a Google Translate, which is better these days than it used to be. How do we do the support? That's a good question. So we have a blog, right, blog posts, and we tried to provide a lot of videos and video content on there. And then we also have care. We have a big care team that's global. So it's 24/7 care, it's chat and email and phone. So we do have that support infrastructure. I will say there probably is a little bit we can do better, especially for small business. Like that's one of the things that, I know that is a bit of a challenge for some of our small businesses who are trying to get help, because there's there is quite a lot of options to improve your site, for example, for a small business, but it's not necessarily in order of what they need at what time they get, and they don't necessarily know what do they need to do. So we've had some small businesses, for example, that I've spoken to, and they've pulled about 10 levers to try and improve their performance on their site, but they probably needed to start with 2 and just focus on those 2 and then worry about the other things in terms of their journey. So they've tried to do too much, too fast, and they don't know how to focus. So that's one of the things we're not so good at. But when I mentioned AI, one of the other tools that we're bringing out is a recommendation tool, like, because you have a sort of a recommendation tool at the moment, but it's not AI generated. So the next will be an AI generated one. We'll look at the site, look at the industry, and look at the different data points, and then make recommendations to the site owner around what they can do to make things better on their platform, on their site.
Thank you, Nathan.
No, I can't answer this one. It's no, we'll leave it. I think we're going to go to the next stage.
He's my boss, so I'm going to put him on the spot here. So just in terms of enterprise businesses, what, for the purpose of the people in the room, what are the key drivers for an enterprise business if they were to be on a platform such as Wix? What would they? What are the things that they would be able to adopt and get out of it?
I think the main one is really, as I mentioned before, probably the content management side, the ability to look at different websites, manage different websites in different regions, and it's really democratizing the content through the organization. That's probably the critical one there. Yeah.
Thank you. So before we move into the customer discussion, I just want to say that I personally, the reason why I reached out to Wix is because we had questions from potential clients or clients that we worked with. They always came up and said that when we want to build a website, we have to have a hosting site or hosting server, and then we have to develop it separately. And every small things that they want to change, they will say, hey, can you change the logo slightly to the right? And then they will say, okay. And then we say, okay, can you put it back? It's not so nice. And they can't do that on their own. So with Wix, the good thing is that if you know how to use a PowerPoint, you are able to navigate around it. And you can actually give a lot of the access back to the client, and they can do these tiny things and save a lot of time. So this is how, and money, yes. And so this is how it all started. But thank you, Nathan, for today, and thank you all for coming today.
Thank you.
I would like to invite Don.
Thanks, grab a seat. No, it's okay. All right, so now I get to change my hat and I get to ask the questions. So we've got here Don. Don, would you like to please do a short intro for yourself and from Dassault?
Hi, my name is Don. I work for Dassault System. It's a European software house that we focus on 3D modeling software. So we do simulations. We do 3D simulations for health sectors. We also do for manufacturing. There's a lot of brands that you might already know, like SolidWorks, that is directly to the consumer, but the rest, like Katia, is more towards the car designs. So yeah, that is the areas.
And your role at Dassault, what do you do?
My role is a senior manager in Dassault System. So I lead a digital marketing team. So I have 2 members here today. Thank you for coming. So what we do is I have 4 teams under myself. So we are 30 plus people. So we handle website publishings, we handle email marketing, we handle data management, we handle software developments as well in-house.
And you mentioned that your team originally started just focusing on managing the content or the digital marketing for Dassault just in Malaysia, but now you do it globally.
Yep.
So how big is Dassault and how many countries are you looking after?
So right now we support 43 countries globally. It's about 13 brands under our management as well, our support. Yeah, so it's a lot.
Yeah, that's quite broad.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about why that happened. Like, what was the reason that you just started and then all of a sudden you got the whole world?
So we started this team, is a very young team since 2018. There's only 4 team members. So we started with the integrations, with the supports. For back then, we are in KL office is Quintix. So when they got bought over by the Dassault System, we actually helped them out with the migrations. So just now you did mention migrations can have a lot of challenges that we have. So we handled it pretty well. So after that, we slowly extend our services to other geo as well, AP South, India, and all. And then at one point, we managed to prove ourselves that it's actually valuable for the teams to be managed in Malaysia. Mainly it's because economy-wise, it's cheaper in a sense. And also, we solve a lot of challenges, like for examples, we don't have to train all the marketers globally to use the tools that we are using. And we need the tools to be in the centers, to monitor what are the web pages that they are publishing, whether or not it meet the brand guideline, whether it follow the best practices. Mainly is because we want them to, every time when they publish some things or they run some campaign, it's really optimized level.
Let's also not forget that you've got very skilled workers here too, so that's also another reason. Are there any markets globally that you're seeing, you find a little bit more challenging, and what's some of the reasons for that compared to, say, the easy markets that you deal with?
I think depend on the team size, because not 43 countries, not every countries have a big team to support this digital marketing. So there are some countries like Russia right now, we can't work with them, but we only have one team members that is supporting other regions. So with that one team member, it's a very small team. We don't expect these small team members to handle the all marketing, digital marketing across for he or her own country, right? So it's a lot to do. So what they do is they just focus on the strategy, the marketing strategy. They focus on the content that is suitable for their own geos, and then they pass the content to us. So we will help them populate all the web pages, help them run the campaign, so that we take away their headaches, so they can focus on the marketing strategy itself.
Yeah, which makes things a little bit easier for the teams in the market, in those fields, in those locales. In terms of your team specifically, that you mentioned you've got a few teams under you, what do they do exactly?
Okay. So whenever, for example, I take event creations, before the event, there maybe needs to publish some pages, event pages, right? So event pages, once they are getting in the contents and all, then we have to send out the email, the marketing, to invite the people within our database. So we run that, and also some paid media as well to drive the new traffics into the events. And then maybe after the event, we convert it into a seminar. So we convert the content from live stream content to YouTube videos. And then we run email marketing to follow up with this content that's come to our events. Some event we actually run through third party. So when we run through third party, we will have to get all this content back into our database. That will be through the data management team.
And how have you seen your strategy and execution evolve over time in those areas?
Strategy, I would say, is depend. Especially the changes, I think mainly is when we grow our support. So first thing, we change our tools, because if you focus on one geo or two geo, it's very easy to manage. But when you focus on 43 across the country, across different time zones, it can be very challenging. So what we do is we change the tools first. We automate the request income tools, so we build it in-house. In the tools, we actually help them to have a preview functions. So when before they actually send out the email, a lot of questions that we always get is, how is my email going to look like? I only give you one subtitle, one hero banner, and these are the contents that I want to put in, but they cannot visualize how does it look like. So we actually build a tools internally to help them. We use inline editing. So we actually help them put in all the content into the proper places. So before they actually send the email request to us, we already preview, I would say 98% similar to what we are going to send out. So we let them preview the email content. So similar to website as well, we try to simulate as much as we can, so that the user, the marketer, when they use our system, they already know what are they going to expect from this outcome. So that will help us a lot.
Okay, and we had a few analytics questions before. So is there any sort of analytics that you find useful in terms of improving your conversion rates?
Analytics, so we have a data management team, so we are not the central teams that is doing the analytics. But our team internally, we did some campaign levels of analytics. One interesting part is, I think it's really someone's doing the email content or keywords research. We did that. Okay, so we have team members here who run A/B tests. So we even do the keyword research for the email content itself. It's not for the SEO purpose, but actually keywords are the words that is eye-catching. So when someone responds, we have a high keywords volumes, it means that this keywords is known by everyone. So if you put this kind of keyword on your subject titles, it's easy to understand. So it get people to open out your email better.
And did you, this is a bit of a surprise question, but did you have any surprises in terms of keywords that were working that you thought might not have worked?
Yeah. I mean, we started this with no expectations because I think there's no one really doing this. So we just say, okay, we try to do something different. So hopefully we get some surprises from here. We actually did, like for example, a simple CTA. We always put reserve or book now or sign up, you know. But the one that really we find it, especially for the events, the one that really working is book a seat. Yeah. So this is something that we found out, like for a few run A/B tests that we did, we found out that really book a seat, those people that come, the attendees, the rate is higher.
Oh, that's good though.
Yeah.
And so you're just doubling down on that one?
Yes, so it
Okay.
depends on content as well. We try on different things, but I think for event it's really work well.
No, that's good to hear. And what channels do you predominantly use for promotion?
For promotions.
Yeah.
That's our system. Actually, we do quite a lot of channels. We do LinkedIn, we do Google's, we do Twitter as well, YouTube. There are some as well. So it depends on which, like you say, the funnels, right? Which level of the peoples that we would like to target. So for example, LinkedIn, we all know that it's very effective, but then the cost is very high. So we will use it for lead gen purpose only. Google, Facebook, it depends on brand as well. Surprisingly, like solutions like the cloud solutions, it work very well on the Facebook. So other than that, I think because our solution is more targeted to an enterprise level. So not all. So I would say if you are using Google, then you have to target very carefully. More for the branding purposes.
And are you using different content on each of those channels, or are you using the same content across them?
Different contents.
And how do you differentiate the content? Like what type of content would you use, say, for LinkedIn compared to what you're using on Google?
Again, I think it's back to the purpose of your campaign. So let's say if you are targeting awareness campaign, so maybe a videos, or simple infographics, it will work better because it's easier for people to understand. But when we are more towards the sales or the conversions, it's more toward the white paper, the case study and all.
Yeah, they're generally pretty good at white paper, I find, especially like a gated one, and then you get some very good leads out of that.
Yeah,
typically.
I think because we have our content production is quite established. We have about 20 people is focusing on content productions. So what they do is before they publish, they actually did their own research. They interviews the industry experts to get all the content. So I think it's pretty solid information.
Yeah, there's some really good. Do a lot of people here use white papers in their B2B marketing? We've got a few hands. No, okay. But yeah, I do find generally it works quite effectively, so that's a good one a good tip to take. A lot of organisations that we've spoken to highlight that content management is one of their biggest challenges. What are some of the challenges that you faced around content management, and what are some of the, I guess, ideal solutions you'd want from the technology stack to be able to solve them?
So I think in Dassault system, we have a few content management systems. So right now, a very legacy one, the Typo 3, we're still using. So mainly right now we are focusing on Drupal 8. Other than that, it's every time when we acquire a new company, then we have to migrate the contents to our side. So it's getting more and more harder to manage. So that is one of the challenges that we have. Yeah.
And okay, no, that makes a lot of sense. And that's the main one that you've got?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. And in terms of multi-brand, how are you managing multi-brand?
Multi-brand, I think it depends of what are the contents that they want to provide. For example, our brand, they will have one colors that is used by them. Like for example, Dalmia is always used green. SolidWorks is always red. So we want to maintain the level of branding's guideline in there, but we can't force them because their brand guideline is different from us. So we maintain the templates and all, and also make sure that the voice when they speak up to the customers is consistent with the Dassault System and brand guidelines.
And is it very process heavy to be able to go through an approvals system to be able to do that? How does that?
Yeah. So
how do you
right
structure
now,
that?
like I mentioned, we build our internal request management system. So using that system, we actually let them select, similar to what we said, we can allow them to select. So let's say if they select Dalmia, so the whole template will change to Dalmia look and feel, but it's still, it's an approved layout as a template, so it's approved layouts. But when they choose SolidWorks, the whole thing will change to red by default. Yeah.
So it's pretty malleable, I suppose,
I
to
would
some
say
degree, no?
yes, we try to
Okay.
control, but then there's a downside of it, like flexibility is not there. So contents, we can add blocks in, but then if they want to change the whole template layout, there is totally different. Yeah.
And does it add a lot of time to make those changes? Does it have to go to the...
Yes, because on our side, we have to change our blocks. Then we allow them to add in whatever they have right now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Oh, what does Dassault System doing? Yeah, can you just explain a bit more around
Dassault
Dassault?
System is a software house, so we focus on software that is building 3D modeling. So what is being heavily used is like, for example, before you build your own product. So last time it's really you go to factory, you stretch out the whole thing using pen and paper. So it's a lot of resource wastes. So right now you do this whole thing in the system. So one example that I can give is in Dassault System, COVID vaccines. So a lot of people are asking, well, why this time the COVID vaccines only take 1 year plus to produce the COVID vaccines. But actually behind the scenes, they actually use Dassault System software to do a lot of simulations. So we right now, like the virtual trains and all, right? So we allowed to put in data, so it's science-based, right? So using all these informations that we have, and we use the system to generate what are the probability. So we reduce a lot of trial and errors using the system. So that's how they speed up the whole vaccines creations. So another example that I can get, I think is a very impressive example, would be the hospitals that built in China during the pandemic's time. So they used 1 week to build the whole hospital. It's a temporary hospital. So they actually use Dassault System software to do the simulations on how the air or the ventilations has to be run. So they do this, and then they do the modelings, the 3D modelings on how this hospital is going to look like. Where do you want to put the patients? How far are they from each other so that it's spread correctly, or how is the air ventilation going to work? Yeah. So mainly focus on healthcare right now, manufacturing, car industry. Yeah, there are quite a lot like home livings, like IKEA doing the modeling for your house before you do actual renovations. There's one of it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, there's one.
Hi, I'm Faisal from GoGet.
Hi.
Yep. So I heard you sharing earlier that you're from digital marketing.
Yes.
Right. And looking at your company profile is very much a B2B play, right? Could you enlighten us and share with us some of the strategies that your team takes when it comes to digital marketing and reaching out to your intended audience, especially in Asia?
Okay. So I would say not only B2B, like I said, some of the software like SolidWorks is really to B2C. But I think, like you just mentioned just now, everything is still back to the sales channels. So it's when you start the whole campaign, first of all, you start with the awareness, how ready do you have the database. So awareness, you use the content that is really very broad. Like you don't you don't talk about your products first. You talk about what are the problems that generally the user will face. What are the things that you can help them, slowly when you target them, if they interact with your asset, right, for your websites, if they really click through your links, then the next step is quickly follow up with the email, because you don't want to lose them, right? It's a very precious contact that you have. So reach out to them, a more personalized email. Then you can start to feed them informations. I would say some product, it will have very long sales cycles, so it won't be so soon. Like that's how it can be take years to get a customer to sign up with us because it's expensive. But then throughout the process, we actually keep sending them relevant informations that is targeting to their own industry. So targeting is very, very important. So different touch point as well, like for these persons, maybe it get to know you from Google's, and then after that it maybe come from events. Then after that you have a follow-up email that send them or this industry case studies. This is how slowly you educate your potential customers. So up to a point that they are ready to really talk to the salespersons, that is where you get them to call. Yeah.
And are you using triggered emails? You know, you mentioned when they come through the funnel, is that a triggered email, like an automated email, or is it someone writing it?
Depend, because
Okay.
if third parties events, then we have to import first
Yep.
and then quickly follow up with the email. But normally we target it within a week, we have to contact them.
Okay. And what system are you using to trigger the emails and then post that? You mentioned you might have to, it's a long sales cycle, so you might have to communicate to them several times over the course of 3 months, 4 months, whatever.
Yeah.
What programs are you using to be able to manage that
We're
process?
using Adobe Campaign.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So
That's
we're
good.
using Adobe Campaigns. We have a target list, but of course, don't spam them too much. So the most is 2 times per week. Yeah, you have to be very careful with that.
And do you have you've got a sales team as well?
Yeah, we
And
have.
do they get involved in that process as well? At any
Marketing
time?
first, no, they don't get involved until we have a scorecard for every contacts that we generate in the marketing teams. So once this contact really reach the certain score levels, then the sales team will come in.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
before it reach the sales level, we will keep on nurture them.
Got it. Yeah, because there's some other tools as well. There's some sales nurturing products, solutions from a BD perspective. I don't know if people like SalesLoft, Outreach, have anyone used those here? So where they kind of build what's called an email cadence for the salesperson, and then they can also factor in sales calls. So rather than necessarily coming from Marketo or from the campaign manager, it's coming from the salesperson. And then that email is automatically triggered, and then it can trigger them as well to make a call. They can see, the salesperson can see if the person's opened it like 5 or 6 times, and then send them alert to say, hey, this person's opened the email, clicked on your link. You can actually call them straight away and say, hey, I saw you've clicked on the link. You don't do that, but it makes them feel a little bit freaked out. But so there's some other tools which are kind of interesting too.
We do have all these trackings, how these footprints come from. We do track them, but then, like I said, before it reaches certain scoring, we won't send it to scale because we want to make sure the salespersons, they use their time wisely. So we make sure that these persons really has the certain levels of interest. They are really ready to understand more about the product itself. Then only we send to the geo to handle.
That's great.
China market is a very, very different market. I would say our normal way of marketing is different. So they will have their own geos to handle it because our way, really, we can't target much. Like for example, their pet ads is using Baidu. Not something that we can do it locally in Malaysia. So yeah, normally this kind of thing we will pass back to the geo specifics. Yeah, but we do have data enrichments, meaning we have vendors who can help us enrich the context. So for example, some information when we send out, like for example, email, we don't ask them to fill in 10 fields that we have in one email or a landing page. But then we ask them to fill in 4 important informations that is enough for us to identify who is this person. Then after that, we will use another campaign to send them, and then hopefully this person sign out and give us more information about this. If really when we would like to understand more about one contact, but then they don't have, then we are using the vendor that we have to enrich the data. So they maybe call them, they maybe use their own database to fill out more information so that we know this customer better. So there's so much we can do for China because others marketing strategy I think is very, very different. Yeah, if for China, you are mentioning about China, sorry, right? Yeah, China is very, very specific. You have to have the website at the hosting has to be in China. Otherwise, the loading, the performance will be very, very slow. So I'm not sure Wix has solved this issue or not, but then, best is still located in China. Your SEO, your performance and all is optimize in China regions. Yeah.
Yeah, my previous company was very strong, had a very strong China presence, and that was definitely one of the things that's really critical. We had a big team there, sales team. I think we had about 300 employees. It was very it was B2B focused, but again, it was the content was created there, very, very different to everywhere else in the world, and such a big market. And also, we found events were very successful there, like big events, and they're just.
Yeah, so maybe in terms of technology, we can't really benefit much, but then in terms of knowledge, I think globally we still share. So one of the initiatives that I have in my team is we actually right now form a very small teams handle each geo. So they have to understand what works best for that geo. So it's very specific. So Japan will have a Japan understanding. So you can see Japan email is very wrong, but they don't mind reading. So if you put the same strategies to Europe, it may be different, right? So they want quick, they want fast information. So we have to understand geo by geo. So right now what I did is I put this whole team responsible for their own geos. They understand, they'll be their partner, support them, understand what works best, what doesn't work in this geo. And then we have a weekly meetings to cross the sharing. So some A/B tests that maybe run on certain geos, during the meetings, we'll bring it out and say, hey, this geo is doing this and the result is quite good. So we share it with other geos. So that is maybe one of the way that we can share our so-called the strategies to China's team. But then, yeah, in terms of technology, still some limitations in there.
I think that's a good point too around the language that you're using in the emails. Like I know, for example, in Japan, it's very formal. In Korea, it's the same thing, very formal. But in the US now, the informal is working better. People, and I know in Australia as well, it's the same thing. Like it's more like I know the person who's sending the email. It's like, hey Nathan, I know we chatted last. Well, I didn't chat, but I was, are you still interested in hearing from me? And it's like 3 sentences and that's it. Like it's very short, very casual language, but you couldn't do that in Japan, for example. Any other questions? Okay. Well. Thank you so much, Don. It was really a pleasure talking to you and learning, and I hope everyone took something out of the session with Don just now. Thank you again very much.
Thank you very much.
A very round of applause for Don. And I'm just going to hand over to Anwar.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Nathan, for the wonderful, insightful chat. So with this come to the end of the panel discussion, and we are going to open up the food outside and also some drinks, and it is going to be a networking open to everyone. And also there is a team from Wix here, Dawn is here, and if you have questions, please reach out to them and ask away. And at the same time, I want to take a moment to thank all the people who have supported for the organization of the event. My team, Jaden and his team, as well as Wix and Crisco Data. And thank you, everyone.